Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to Career Clarity and Confidence Live. Today, we're going to talk about why it pays to be yourself. If we haven't met yet, I'm Kelli Thompson. I'm a women's leadership coach and speaker, and I am the author of Closing the Confidence Gap, which is going to be coming out this fall. So, I want to talk a little bit about this whole concept of why it pays to be yourself, because I think, especially as women leaders, we have been told a lot of things. So for me, I have been told I'm too direct, or maybe I'm just a little bit too blunt. And if you're joining me live, I would love for you, if you're willing, to share with me and share in the comments. Have you ever been told? What have you been told? Have you been told that you're too sensitive, or you're too talkative, or you're too bossy, or you're too assertive? Or give me a like if you've ever been told any one of those things. Because I think as women, I don't think I know, the research shows is there is a set of expectations, to which people expect women to behave. Pew Research did some research, and what they found is that the traits that are most commonly associated or accepted with women is to be likable, friendly, collaborative, and that when women often don't show up that way, sometimes they can be penalized in their work. But what's really encouraging is there's a whole other body of research that's emerging. One that just came out. They studied, I think it was like 45,000 documents and like 1.23 billion words of documents inside these companies, of companies that were run by female CEOs. And what they found was twofold. One, they found that the typical comments like assertive, bossy, direct were no longer taken in such a negative connotation. And what was really cool was they also found that women who demonstrated more, typical female qualities like emotional, sensitive, collaborative were not seen as incompetent, because in some double bind situations, I'm sure that maybe you've experienced this, is that you've been told, like, you really need to toughen up, because, inadvertently what they were saying is because you're sensitive, that doesn't really like reek of competence or what we're looking for. And again, this is just what the research says. And I was always told that I was too direct, and I didn't really make anything of it. I started my career early in sales, and directness helped me. Like, that's how I closed sales, and I was a phone salesperson, so being direct was great. It was working for me. And eventually I was promoted into human resources. And the person that I was working for, he was a man, and we had just gotten done with a meeting. And as he was leaving the meeting, he's like, you're really direct. And there's going to be a lot of people who don't know how to handle you. And like, my parents had kind of always told me that I was very blunt and direct, but I never really thought of it as like a career liability until he said that. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, and as I continued on in my leadership career, going to leadership training, I kept getting feedback. You're really direct. You're really direct. You're really direct. And so, in a way, and give me a heart or a like, or tell me if this has happened to you. But I started to get really self-conscious about it. And as I started to get self-conscious about that flaw, that thing I'd always been told was a flaw, it took a lot of energy. I felt like I was constantly self-censoring. So I'd be curious if that has ever happened to you. Drop me a heart or tell me yes if you've ever felt like, because you've been too bossy, assertive, sensitive, chatty, emotional, whatever that is, that you felt like you had to show up at work and self-censor. And you had to constantly think and ruminate about everything that you said. And then you would walk out of that room and then like rehash everything that you said in that room, saying, oh my gosh, I hope I didn't come across as too direct. And, it wasn't until many years later, when I started to just become a little bit more aware of some gender dynamics in the workplace, that I started to realize that, my directness could actually be an advantage at work. In fact, as I continue my career in human resources, my directness was actually a really helpful trait. Because I was direct, I could deliver hard news to people, I mean, you've all been in workplaces, right? Where you get acquired or benefits change, and you have to learn how to deliver hard news and be open and honest with people. And my directness allowed me to do that. I learned that because I was direct, I was a good HR person to my CEO, because I wasn't afraid to tell him the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm really curious if you would tell me in the chat, because you are blank, what does that allow you to do? So let me give you an example on the other side of it. I had a client and, she was just always really self-conscious about how sensitive she was at work. She's like, Kelly, she's like, I just get so frustrated because, she's like, I can just pick up on things that other people can't pick up on. And, I'm working really hard to hold it in and not say anything. And then because I'm holding it in and not saying anything, sometimes I wait too long. And then when I have the conversation, like I can't help but like tears start coming around out. She's like, I guess I'm just so sensitive to like interpersonal dynamics. I'm sensitive to change. I'm sensitive to what other people are doing. She's like, I got spidey senses. I can pick up on everything. And she's like, I just hate that about myself. I've always been taught that I was too sensitive. Well, her and I were working together and we did this little activity that includes getting feedback from people love and trust, to talk about your skills. And everyone said to her, like, you are so in tune with what people and customers need that you make excellent recommendations. You are so in tune to people's needs that you're really good at bringing together groups. You're so in tune to what people need. You're really great at your marketing job. And she started to realize, she goes, oh, because I am sensitive, I know how to deliver an excellent customer experience because I know what people need. I pick up on it. Because I am sensitive, I'm a great team leader because I'm really inclusive of everyone involved. And she said, because I am sensitive, I'm really good at leading change and knowing what people need and being very attuned to the needs of others. So this isn't just being overly direct or overly assertive. It's also on the other end of the spectrum. Because I am sensitive, because I'm emotional, because I am, overly gracious, because of all these things. So I'm curious, like, tell me in the chat, where do you fall on that spectrum? What have you always been told? Bossy, assertive, controlling, sensitive, overly collaborative, talkative, chatty. I mean, there's all these labels. I know some of you say that you've been called that you are too assertive. It's Women's History Month. And I'm always reminded this time of year of my great grandma. We actually have a farm. I'm in Nebraska. If you don't know, we have a farm in Nebraska, and there's like this old bus that sits on the farm. The bus is from the 1960s. And the 1960s, she was a widow. Actually, she was a widow. Her husband had died in 1959. And she was left with 3 young kids, and she was left with this farm to run. Now, if y'all remember, in the 1960s, women couldn't get a loan without a male cosign. So she had to pay cash for this bus. Cash. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I don't know if I could pay cash for a bus. I'm just saying. But when she was young, her dad kind of saw something different in her and allowed her to work at the family's hardware store. And when she learned to work at the family's hardware store, she learned what things cost. She learned what cost when people buy things, and then how much it costs to resell them. She learned about marketing. She learned about customer preferences. She learned how to run a shop. She became very shrewd and very math-minded. She was very much like, okay, what does this cost and what do I sell it for? And that became especially important as her and her family made it through the Great Depression to become very cost conscious. So, she gets married, and her husband buy this farm, and she has a very active stake in it because he's off working on the railroad. So he's gone a lot of the time. So she was 4'11", and she was known to drive behind her big car and walk into these stores. And when the clerks would see her come in, they would immediately go get the manager because they knew that she was there to negotiate and nickel and dime them to the last dollar. Like, she would walk in because she knew how much everything costs, ask for what she wanted, ask for the price she wanted, and stand there and stare at them until they gave it to her. Now, I bet you can all imagine what name she was called. She was probably called bossy, bitchy, shrewd, assertive, rude. And it could be really easy for her to succumb to those names and be like, oh gosh, you know what? Maybe I need to change my ways. But here's the thing. Because she was bossy, assertive, direct, shrewd, maybe because people called her rude, that doesn't mean she was rude. Remember, in the 1950s and 60s, she was defying gender norms. So if a man would have been walking in, he would have been just fine. So because she was those things, she was able to continue to fund the farm as a widow when she couldn't get a loan. She employed an entire crew She ran the family farm. She fed hungry families. She fed her own family. She, was able to set up a legacy for her family. So I want you all to walk away from this thinking about how much time and energy do you spend trying to hide your flaws, which could be your greatest gifts? And how is that impacting your confidence? Because I know that when I was walking around trying to constantly hide the fact that I was direct, or I was trying to show up more like someone else, like my more emotional boss, or my somebody who was just not like me, I was just awkward and I wasn't my true self. And what's really fascinating is there was research done by Francesca Gino. It was published by Harvard. And she was doing a study on whether or not people can kind of snuff out inauthenticity in the hiring process. Now, tell me in the chat or give me a heart, like, whatever. Can you kind of tell when people aren't being authentic? I know I can, right? There's just something that's off. And so she was like, okay. She's like, I want to know, when you're going in to apply for VC capital or a new job or whatever it is, should you be who you think the interviewers want you to be, or should you show up as yourself? So in this study, there were people who were showing up as to who they thought the interviewers wanted them to be, and then people who just showed up as themselves. The people who showed up as themselves were 26% more likely to be hired. And so it pays to be yourself. It literally pays to be yourself, not only in your paycheck, but in your potential, right? Think of everything that you could accomplish if you use those unique things about you to get things done. But it impacts your peace too. How much time and energy are you spending self-censoring? I honestly believe that all of that energetic toll that we take to show up as someone else or self-censoring our abilities is it's exhausting. It's totally exhausting. And so I want you to think about two things. I want to give you two tools to walk away with today so you can really think about why it pays to be yourself and how you can use these flaws, right? These things everyone told you are flaws as your greatest gifts. So the first one is this: because I am blank, I am able to blank. Okay, so two examples would be: because I am sensitive, I am able to read the needs of the room. Because I am talkative, I'm just repeating some of the ones I saw in here. Because I am talkative, I am able to engage others in conversation in a meaningful way that builds collaboration and trust. Because I have sometimes been seen as too nice, I can make people feel warm and welcome inside a new group or an organization. So fill in the blank. Because I am blank, I am able to blank. For me, because I am direct, now that I run my own business and as a coach, I can talk about difficult topics without sugarcoating it. I can tell people sometimes hard things that need to be heard. And I can also remain objective because I'm not very emotional. I can remain objective even when sometimes topics get really challenging. Okay, so that was part one. So if you want to share yours in the comments, I would love to see it. Because I am blank, I am able to blank. Okay, so the second one is this. It's then saying, because there, just because we're seen as like sensitive or too nice or direct or assertive doesn't mean we need to like over rotate, right? Because I still believe that there's a situational approach that combines our unique style along with our values. And our values, really describe how we want to be seen as a leader. I want to repeat one of these before, and we'll add to this one. Because I am direct, I'm able to get to the heart of a difficult issue, saving time and resources. That's wonderful. That's awesome. Wonderful example. So directness, right? Let's just use directness as an example. My core values are love, respect, family, creativity, and learning. And so I'm a firm believer that you should use your unique approach and always do it in alignment with your values. Because as humans, right, when we show up in alignment with our values, it feels congruent for us. Susan David, she's the author of Emotional Agility, and she says it best. She says, values are the heartbeat of our why. So when we can use our unique approach in alignment with our values, it creates a balanced approach so that we can not only show up as who we are, but in a way that is adaptive to our audience. So let me give you an example. So if my core values are love, respect, family, creativity, and learning, depending on the situation, I can ask myself, well, how can I be direct and loving in a situation that requires directness with a very soft hand? How can I be direct and respectful? If one of my values is creativity, I can say, how can I be creatively direct? I need to be direct, but I need to be a little bit creative in how I deliver my message to make sure it's heard in the way I want it to be heard. If another one of my values is learning, I can say, how can I be direct while also being supportive of what I'm trying to have folks learn here, right? How can I keep my eye on learning? And so I would encourage you to think about, and if you don't know what your values are, a great question that you can ask yourself is this: what are 3 words that describe how I want people to view me as a leader? And so let's do the opposite. If maybe one of your values is honesty, maybe another one of your values is transparency. Maybe another one of your values is well-being. Okay. And so if you've been told you are too nice, right? Or, you could say, well, gosh, how can I be nice and honest? Like I can be honest and nice. I can be nice by being honest. How can I be nice and transparent? How can I be nice? And, when I think about well-being or balance, like how can I balance the conversation so that it's just not over focused on nice, but we're also talking about some of the hard things that are being discussed. So I love that approach to use your values and consider your values in alignment with what is your unique approach. Because remember, when you spend your time and energy trying to show up as someone else, you lose the power that makes you, you. So that's your takeaway today. Because I am blank, I am able to blank. And then how do you use that approach in alignment with your values? I can be blank and blank. I can be direct and loving. I can be nice and honest. And these will really help you think about, in how you can tweak your unique approach for the situation. So I also said that I would be talking about my women's leadership program today. So if you have any questions about just this approach, right? It pays to be yourself. You can definitely private message me. You can drop them in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. I also want to let you know that in less than 2 weeks, on March 29th, my women's leadership program begins. We have just 3 spots left. We meet every week for 8 weeks at noon Central on Zoom. And it is meant for women who want to get clear on their strengths as a leader, how to overcome doubt, boost confidence, use their voice at work, and take brave next steps. It's perfect for the woman who is unsure on what she wants to do and needs more career clarity. Or maybe you've just been promoted in your role and you're like, I am feeling all the doubt and imposter syndrome, and you just need like a good framework to help you lead with more confidence. So if this is something you're interested in, there are more details at kellyraythompson.com/leadership program. It's $6.99. There are payment options and VIP options available. And you can see the list of topics there too. We talk about everything from finding your values as a leader to owning your unique approach to how to speak up, overcome doubt, trusting yourself. I use the Enneagram. All of my clients get an Enneagram when they come in, which gives them really unique insight on their core motivation and, the fear that holds them back. For entrepreneurs, this is what I tell all my entrepreneurs. There are a couple of entrepreneurs in the class. The content is geared towards corporate women. But I would encourage you to take a look at the agenda and see if it resonates with you, because the outcomes that entrepreneurs have realized when they've taken this course is they know what their values are. And so that helps them get very clear about the type of business that they're running and what types of clients or business decisions are in alignment with their values or not. They get very clear on their leadership strengths. They get very clear on what I call their zone of genius. Same thing for leaders. Like, what is the work that you should be doing and what should you be delegating? We talk a lot about setting boundaries and delegating. Talk a lot about trusting yourself as a leader and using your voice. So for entrepreneurs who are looking for a little more clarity around themselves, their leadership strengths, etc., it could be a good fit. I would encourage you to take a look at the agenda and then message me if you have any questions, and we can talk about if this still feels like a good fit for you. So I think that there's 2 entrepreneurs in this session, and then the other 11 that are registered are corporate women. So All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I always love hearing from you. So if you're watching this on replay, feel free to comment on anything that we've discussed. And remember, it pays to be yourself. I hope y'all have an awesome day.